Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here in Washington, D.C. at the Swedish Embassy for an opportunity to talk with the Supreme Commander of Sweden's Armed Forces, General Micael Bydén. Sir, thanks very much for making time out of your schedule on your action-packed trip here to the United States.
Well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
We have spoken over the years about Aurora 17, the major military exercise, a lot of firsts. First time to have a significant number of foreign troops on Swedish soil. First time almost 1,000 Americans participated in an exercise, including M1 tanks, on the Royal Parade grounds as well, on the exercise fields. Talk to us a little bit about, now that the exercise is concluded, from a commander's perspective who had done a lot of the planning for this, what were the lessons learned? What do you feel you accomplished?
Yeah, first of all, we are right now in the middle of doing the analysis. So there are much to be done, but the exercise as such, we finalized it a few weeks ago. And to give you a general overview, we are very pleased. I mean, we have reached the goals with the training and exercise goals, meaning, for an example, that we tried and exercised the host nation support concept, if I may, and it looks like we did pretty good, meaning that we took care of the incoming units from several countries. We were able not only to say welcome, you're here, but also to introduce them to our system and for them to get to a situation pretty quick to be able to operate their assets. So we are more than pleased with that. Also, having international participants meant that our units, I mean some 20,000 men and women, were able to conduct joint operations, and we were able to have a very sophisticated adversary with the international incoming, but also to work together with them as partners. So far, it looks really good.
It was I should have said at the top of it, it was the largest exercise Sweden's conducted since the end of the Cold War, and again, the first one that had foreign troops in. Talk to us a little bit about the scenarios you were practicing, because there were a multiplicity of scenarios that were going. It didn't test the full total defense concept, which Sweden did have during the Cold War. But talk to us about some of the scenarios, including defense of Gotland, which was an important piece of this.
Sure. So it's important to say it was a military exercise, exactly as you described it. So even though we today work in what we call a total defense concept, meaning that the civil part of defense is very important to support the military part, we had some 500 plus representatives from the civil society as well, other agencies from municipalities or everywhere where they have a task to solve, and that it was also a confirmation that it works. But it was a purely military exercise, meaning that we had the exercise and we forced it all the way to a military aggression towards Sweden, which would be the task for the Swedish Defense Forces to take care of. So by that meaning a sophisticated adversary aggression towards Sweden, taking care of that with our forces together with partners. That was kind of the driver. A national defense exercise, but having international partners. And this is kind of the concept we have. The security policy solution we have would be to defend the country on our own and together with others to be able to solve the task.
From a Swedish society standpoint, you worked to make it as transparent of an exercise because Russia was conducting its own Zapad exercises, and I want to get to that in a moment. But talk to us from a Swedish society standpoint, how this exercise sort of changed the nature of the Swedish defense debate. There have been folks, certainly on the uniform side, your predecessor was very passionate about arguing and making the case for more resources. When he started doing it, there wasn't as much traction. By the time he finished doing it, we'd seen the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Talk to us from a societal standpoint. What were some of the breakthroughs from your standpoint?
Yeah. This started already before and prior to the big exercise. I would say Aurora exercise was more the confirmation for us. Remember now we're 2 years into the defense decision period, the 5-year period, 2016 to 2020. That meant break of trend. Two things. We get more resources, meaning the politicians add more money. That's a break of trend. The other break of trend would be that it's now a national focus. We don't exclude the international participation. We're still in Mali with some 250 soldiers. We're in Afghanistan, we're in Iraq. But the national focus with a situation with Russia close to us, that has been the driver. So it had already started, but the confirmation, a couple of confirmations during the exercise, which I'm very pleased with, would be, one is the spirit in my units right now. It's a spirit and an attitude saying, now we will solve the task with the given prerequisites, meaning with what we have, we will solve the task. That's very good. The other part, which I'm very pleased of, would be the interest and the support from society. It's overwhelming. They understand that the world around us is not as secure as we would have liked it to be. They realize we need a solid defense, including a military defense. So we had an Armed Forces Day in Stockholm, a Sunday in September. Some 80,000 people came from their houses just to meet us, to see us, and to say the good words about us, and giving us the basis and the ground to continue our job. That feels great.
You talked that it's a little bit early for lessons learned, but let me ask you a few lessons. First, host nation support is a challenging endeavor. It stresses logistics capabilities in particular. I know that Sweden created a logistics authority a few years ago, almost anticipating future challenges to be an equal with FMV. Talk to us a little bit about the support, the logistics element, and people. You know, your predecessor had very prominently said that Sweden would be able to defend itself for a week, given how much people and budget it had at the time. Sverker Göransson had said that. And you said, well, I think we can do a little bit better than that. Did you have enough people at the end of the day? Because these were very, very intensive exercises. And I think that Americans don't fully appreciate how small the armed forces are, that the Swedish Air Force that you commanded is something like 2,300 people, even though it packs a big punch. Talk to us about the sustainment piece. Talk to us about whether you had enough people.
Mm-hmm. One have to remember where we come from. We had quite a few years when it was more quiet around the world, and the defense was not in focus for reasons. So I'm not pointing fingers here, but the decisions that were taken at the time meant that we grew smaller, if I may, and there were, I think it was just a natural outcome at the time. Now when we are again facing risks and threats that are something else, it means that one asks things from the defense forces right now which we're not really meant for. And we know it, and the politicians know it. So now we have started again to build the capacities, to build a stronger defense, but it takes time. Everyone that deals with defense knows that it takes time to train and educate people. It takes time to add technical systems. It's a long procedure and a long process to get there. But we are. About the 1 week question, to be honest, I'm a bit tired of it, if I may. So that was an expression like 4 years ago in a very specific scenario, if I may. The scenario is not there. We see something else. We see risk like information operations or campaigns. We see intel gathering or intel that someone is getting there. We are under pressure all the time, and we see another scenario today. From that perspective, we will fight to the end. But we are a small force, and sustainment would be one of the areas where I'm now looking at for the future. How should the forces look like? What are the volumes here? What capabilities do we need, and for how long are we going to sustain operations?
Let me ask you about the Zapad exercise. It was not as large as it was originally billed, but it was still a very, very significant exercise. As somebody who's been paying very close attention, the Vice Minister of Defense from Lithuania, Gedimas Jeglenskas, when we spoke to him, said, hey, look, this to us looked like a dress rehearsal for an invasion of a NATO country. But from your perspective, what did you see that the Russians did that surprised you or didn't surprise you? What about it did you see as a professional military officer as being interesting to take note of when you looked at that exercise?
Mm-hmm. Even under the time period where our focus were international missions, where the situation in our area was kind of quieter, we never took our eyes and ears from what the Russians are doing. We have a pretty good idea of their capabilities, and we still look at them. So prior to Aurora, it was obvious that they were going to launch Zapad. Nothing really surprised us. And what we did from our part, which I think was one of the successes as well, we were very open about our exercise. We were very transparent, saying, okay, we're now conducting the biggest exercise for over 2 decades. This is where we will exercise. This is what we will exercise. This is together with whom and why we are doing it. And we continue to have a very active communication about it. So that was one thing. So I mean, from that perspective, nothing surprised us. And we also, what I'm happy about, we didn't have any incidents to a level that kind of put us in a dangerous situation.
Talk to us a little bit about the hotline. You have noted repeatedly your concern about having a direct channel to be able to talk to Russian forces in the event of a crisis. Do you have that hotline now, and did you exercise it during the Zapad exercise or during Aurora?
Yeah, one of the areas that have been a concern for me over time has been that we don't have a way of communicate with the Russians. We do have with other countries. I mean, it's a lot of military representation over the Baltics right now and in a smaller area. So one of the issues I've seen, if we have an incident, it doesn't necessarily have to be a planned one. I mean, something can just happen. It could be an accident, a small incident. But if you don't handle it right, it could cause problems. It could escalate a situation, and I have no way to communicate with Russia. So this is something I have addressed before. So what I can say right now, it's there. The communication line is there. It's been tried, and I'm very happy to be able to speak to someone if we have an incident that we need to talk about.
Your time is short, so I'm going to focus on 2 key questions. You're among 100 chiefs of defense who's here in Washington for a very important conference to talk about sort of the next changes, steps on the global fight against terrorism, global extremism. Talk to us about what some of the topics are, what are the issues, and what are you bringing to the table as part of this discussion, given it is a global campaign. Every nation has felt the sting of this one way or another. Talk to us about some ways that Sweden is thinking about the problem along with its partners.
Again, representing a country, building security together with others, it's just natural for us to cooperate. We're in Iraq under Operation Inherent Resolve. We also participate in other operations very close. The terrorist attacks have been here now over time, and it hit us 7 of April in the middle of Stockholm. That is one area we will address and also inform the lessons learned about. And good thing is that we use the international cooperation during the days around 7 April. And that meant something to us. So that's one part. And so from my perspective would be cooperation with partners, but it's also cooperation between military and civil parts. So this is an area that I would definitely focus on during the conference tomorrow.
Let me take you to the partnership with the United States. You and your predecessors have worked very hard to open that bridge. So have American officials have sought to expand cooperation with Sweden. We saw it manifest in Aurora. A number of other fronts, technologically, intelligence sharing, are all at all-time highs. What's the next step in the budding strategic relationship between the United States and Sweden?
Mm-hmm. Last year, our Ministry of Defense and and his counterpart in the US, they signed an agreement. It's called a Statement of Intent, including a few areas on cooperation. So we work in line with that. So far, it's a very productive cooperation. We take it step by step. We try to make it very concrete. It's now being dealt within the services quite a bit. So I can't really give a very specific answer. What's the next step? It's a row of very specific steps, and it has to be concrete because this is what's expected from political level from us. So I have great feelings about it, and I have some great confirmation as well coming here to talk to my people, and I will of course meet my colleagues in the U.S. Armed Forces the days I'm here.
Let me take you back home now. You said that 2020 is not the end of history, right? We have to start planning now for the next what happens in 21 to 26 in the next sort of 5-year plan. Talk to us about what are some of the elements you want included in that. There is a lot from this current plan which is going to be successful. The Gripen, new generation aircraft. You were former chief of the Air Force. Mm-hmm. That program looks like it's off to a strong start. A-26, new submarine. That's moving ahead also. But talk to us what you think are the elements of the next plan that you have to pave the way for as the Defense Commission prepares to meet to sort of map out what that next 5-year agenda is. Mm-hmm.
We do have some challenges already within this 5-year period. We're 2 years into it. So what I have been forced to do is to make tough decisions, prioritizing. There are no margins anymore. There are no reserves, and this is identified and this is communicated to political level. What is also obvious is after 2020, we have some very significant investments. So there are need for more economy. If budget is not raised after 2020, the level of operational capabilities will drop. That's also obvious. So when I talk about investments, it's everything from very simple equipment for soldiers and sailors, all the way to sophisticated systems like sensors, like command and control systems as such. And what we're also doing right now, we are looking even further on, being long-term. A defense force that doesn't have a long-term vision or insight what it means, it will be no relevant in just a few years. So we do that, and that would be in line with a huge analysis and report we are now launching that will happen in February. That will be a part of the Defense Commission that now are looking into the 5-year period after 2020. So it's we are doing our bit, again back to heavy investments. We are looking all the way to 2035. What does it mean? What's needed over there? What's the structure of the forces? Again, volumes, capabilities, technology level, everything. So it's this is a huge job we are doing right now.
Can you talk about whether missile defense is a key piece of it, strike is a key piece of it? What are the elements that go into that deep future as you're looking at it capability-wise? Do you already have an idea of what are some of the things that, no matter commission or no commission, you have in your mind that, hey, these are things we have to invest in at this point?
Without going into details, I would say long-range, precision, cyber, space, things and capabilities in these areas will of course be very interesting and important. It's also representing a smaller countries. It is impossible to bear the cost for everything. So again, back to cooperation, having partners to share the burden with.
You mentioned cyber, and one of the things that's been discussed is sort of a somewhat a more offensive cyber, right, response. Very few countries have had to bear the brunt of sort of incessant abuse that you've gotten from the Russian side, from disinformation operations to actually active cyber measures and disinformation. Talk to us about that whole picture, how you're improving your capability, and how does that, quote, second strike cyber capability fit into your defensive structure and thinking?
Well, it's an arena, if I may, or an area which is very important. We have always, or as long as we have had IT solutions, it's important for us to protect our information, first of all. Being able to protect it and also being able to identify when something is not really in order. Not least if someone is trying to get into your system. So we do that. It's also given today in informal tasks that we're now looking into a CNA capability, computer network attack capability, together with other agencies. So this is it's not a new service, but it's definitely a new arena, and it's very important for us to be able to conduct operations in.
And do you feel like you're making progress on the disinformation side of things, the information operations that Sweden is, including aiming at you, for example?
Yeah, and the best thing you can do about it is when you identify it, you need to be very fast being out there and communicate it and say this is wrong, this is the fact, and you do it. And also this is another area where we work very closely with international partners.
Sir, thanks very much. We really appreciate it. Best of luck on your visit, and hopefully we'll see you in Sweden soon.
Thank you very much, and the pleasure is mine. Looking forward to see you again.